I'm going to go through some things today regarding water-filled barriers. What I wanted to go through an agenda about maybe the history of water-filled barriers and barricades, the primary usages, the benefits, and when you might want to choose to use a product like this as opposed to using concrete or some other delineation or channelizer. Some things I want to cover before we go. Before I get started, can I just have a quick show of hands? Like who in this room is like a general contractor, somebody that's actually doing installation work? Okay, people from state agencies or consultants. Okay, thanks. Just like to get a general feel who's in the room before I start talking. Some basics I wanted to cover with water-filled barriers and barricades. Versatility. You know, the background behind this category of product is it uses a ballast as the primary means to vary the weight. And by varying this weight, this device is used in multiple different categories for traffic control. Secondly, there are different brands. As we heard about the steel barriers, and it applies across the board. There are different brands out there, and like all traffic control products, different brands have different approvals and different usages. So it's just important to understand. I work for the Yodoc Wall Company, but I'm going to refer to some other brands in here. But it's primarily on the Yodoc line. But it does cover the general gamut of water-filled barriers and barricades. And lastly, materials. A water-filled barrier, it's typically a molded plastic exterior, and they're all crash-worthy TL3 barrier wall products utilize some type of steel, either internally or externally, in that product in order to achieve the crash-worthy requirements for barrier wall. The history, this product first emerged out there as a common product in the early 90s. The Triton barrier by energy absorption was the first water-filled barrier to actually achieve an NCHRP 350 test approval. There are currently 4 TL3 accepted barrier wall products in the water-filled barrier category, and there are at least 10 out there right now that meet some are either TL1, TL2, or TL3 testable approvals. The primary uses for water-filled barrier. The focus of this breakout session is regarding barrier wall, and I'm going to focus on that, but I am going to go into some other categories around the uses for water-filled barriers and barricades. I mentioned barrier wall, TL1, TL2, TL3 for the different speed zone requirements. Longitudinal channelizing devices. This is a category, I'm going to go into this in a little more detail. This is my personal passion. This is my pet project, and that I refer to LCDs as it's that gray area in between when you're going to put out a cone or a drum or a type 2 barricade as a channelizing device or a delineator versus going to using concrete jersey curb or K-rail or whatever you call it in your local market. It's that gray area in between, which is an LCD, and this is stipulated in the new version of the MUTCD 6F.66. But also I'll talk a little bit about barricades, typical type 2s, type 3s for road closures, and also temporary sign supports. Barrier wall, that's basically what we've been talking about here. It's temporary or permanent roadside hardware. It provides positive protection, and it must meet the FHWA NCHRP 350 guidelines. I think that's the basics of what we want to talk about here today. This installation application here, you're seeing it's a TL3 barrier wall. That's the plastic water-filled barricade with an optional steel rail attachment that goes down the side of that, and that's a FHWA-approved product. I mentioned the longitudinal channelizing devices. I find that the more people I talk to, the more people I realize that haven't really been exposed to this type of usage in the traffic control industry. And I think when I look at an MOT plan or a temporary traffic control plan, I look at this and it's almost, an engineer is almost programmed in his head to say concrete jersey barrier or K-rail. That's what they put on there. They don't write TL3 spec barrier wall or TL2 spec barrier wall and go through that. It's almost they're programmed in because that's the way we've done business for since the beginning of time in traffic control. And I think we saw a lot of good things with this steel product, steel barrier wall. That we just saw this as a great product. I think this really is going to be a major part of our industry in the coming years. But I think there is another category here in looking at water-filled plastic barriers that have I'm going to emphasize 3 things to you today. Versatility of the product that you're buying or utilizing, the mobility of that product within your work zone, and the functionality of what you're trying to achieve with that product in the work zone. So for an LCD, they clearly delineate your work zone. They're deployed empty or ballasted. They're used to control direct channel and stop vehicles, and they're intended to aid in containment. I think it's important to understand these products are not designed to provide positive protection. It's designed to provide that better use of delineation and channelization in the work zone. And I'm going to go through a little bit of this. I'll through these pretty quickly. So, one of the problems you have is a clear path of travel. When you're trying to channelize the product, you have workers standing 10 feet behind those grabber cones. That's a problem. The guy slips, trips, falls. He's right out. An incident just happened, what was it, about 4 months ago in the state of Georgia. A road worker was picking up some drums. The motorist was driving a little too close to the drums. He was too close to the path of travel. He went literally a foot and a half out. He was hit and killed instantly on the job. And you look at this previous slide, and you look at that, and where's my clear path of travel of how to navigate through this work zone versus that's a very clear setup. You can set that up in about 25 minutes. It provides added safety to the worker, added safety to the driver, and also protect your equipment behind there. Road debris and noise. Every one of us has seen a setup just like this. Oh, we're only going to be out there for a week. We're not going to bother to assemble 1,000 linear feet of barrier wall out there. We're going to protect that. We're just going to put out some cones. You can set up a work site just like that. That's a setup that takes 2 hours total. Boom, it's in place. Now your workers are protected. You prevent all that road debris and noise that flies up into the work zone. Again, the worker entering the path of traffic. Slip, trip, fall, boom, he's hit. As opposed to that guy can fall out of that piece of equipment, roll around on the ground, and he's still not going to get out in front of that path of traffic. Prevent motorist crossover. We've all seen this. Okay, traffic gets slowed down. I'm sitting there. Oh, it looks like this goes up to 2 miles. They cut right in between your delineators, whether it's cones, drums, or whatever. They go off on the right-hand side, right along here. This guy gets frustrated. He cuts through here and tries to drive up and navigate through this temporary lane. That stops that from happening. That driver's not going to go over there and run over one of the workers. He's not going to injure himself driving off into a 10-foot or a 10-foot drop when they're doing the trench work. Again, one of the biggest issues that we have, again, I'm talking a little bit in general. I'll get back to barrier wall in a second. A little bit in general of what you see when you go into a work zone. You go into a work zone, and typically every person that owns a business right here, because this work zone is going to go on for 6 months or a year, every person here is going to go out of business by the time. So it's great. They have a brand new road with nobody having shops along the side of there. And that happens constantly in urban setups. This makes it very clear for me where I can cut in through here. I'm coming right through and I turn right in there. Or I drive up here and cut into this next lane. This is a perfect use for a water-filled barricade or barrier, as opposed to standard channelizing devices or even concrete for that matter. Maintaining fluidity in traffic control. Again, we've all seen it. People are trying, where do I go? I'm not sure where to cut through on this zone. That makes it very clear that the motorist has to continue on underneath that underpass, and then they can make their decision where they're going to turn. Provide decision site distance. Down here in Florida, out in California, we have the motorist population. The age is increasing. People can't see as well. Their sights get a little blurry. They have difficulty in the evenings trying to determine where they're supposed to turn in. That makes it very clear for anybody coming through here where you're supposed to be and keeping you from going over into that other lane. Maintaining ADA compliance. I'm sure this is hitting pretty much everybody in this room. We need to make work zones ADA compliant during the temporary phase of that construction. And we see old, beat up, chopped up, cracked concrete constantly on work zones. There is a very clear work zone. Anyone with at least, it provides a continuous top rail, bottom rail, and continuous channelization that's at least 5 feet wide to maintain ADA compliance. Now I'm going to go through the rest. That was my little spiel on LCD, but I wanted to get that in here. Type 3 barricades. Everybody's seen the situation that happens. You put out a Type 3 barricade, either the wind blows it over, or the kids come and move it out of the way. They drive through there, but they never put it back. The next person goes and drives off the end of the bridge. This is a way for you to be able to put 1,500-pound ballast at the bottom of your Type 3. Nobody's going to move that out of the way, and it provides the exact same approval, and that's FHWA approved with the water-filled barricade. Use number 4, temporary sign support. To be able to use this one's using the 32-inch model. It's a 750-pound ballast. You can have trucks drive along that all day long. You're not going to blow that sign over. Again, I think in extreme situations, there are some other options that I believe many people aren't considering when they're setting up their traffic control areas. And the benefits. I'm going to go on and on and on. Versatility, mobility, and functionality. Concrete is never going away. Cones and drums are never going away. And I think we're going to see more and more steel barriers come in. I think the steel barrier product, it's something that Barrier Systems Inc. has a great one. Energy absorption coming out. There's a number of others that are applying for use in the United States. However, the benefits of a water-filled barrier barricade are these 3 items. You'd look at versatility. For anyone who has to maintain an inventory, you're part of the purchasing process, you have concrete. Now you're looking at steel. You also have drums, you have cones, you have arrow boards, message boards, attenuators. Here's one product with multiple usages. It's comprised of this energy dispersement cell, the plastic water-filled ballast, and then you get multiple applications with different attachments. If you look here on the top left, you put a steel rail attachment on the side. Now you have a TL3 stack barrier wall. You leave the steel rail off it, and you can use it as your channelizing device. You can put the vertical poles that integrate down into the barricade itself. Now you have a temporary sign support. Anyone that's working down along the East Coast, or actually even the West Coast in Florida, hurricane season is going to come after the end of the summer, and you're going to have all your signs blown over. Or you can take and use it as a Type 3 road closure. It gives you something a little bit more permanent and allows you to block off a road, provide a very solid line of demarcation that do not pass through this area, and you will not move that product. It reduces the total amount of inventory that you need to maintain in your yards. It reduces your cost. It's nice to be able to say, oh, well, I can get concrete for free, but it costs me $50,000 to just ship it, from a few hundred miles away. Or you can say, oh, well, I'm going to invest more in some other things. This allows you to reduce your costs. Costs are an issue for everybody right now. Here's a product that's extremely versatile, has full FHWA approvals and most state DOT approvals. It allows you to minimize those total costs of ownership. Mobility, cheaper, faster, and greener. And most of the things, when I refer to almost anything, I'm referring to concrete. I'm not referring necessarily to steel, the steel barriers. Reduce transportation costs. In this photo right here, you can get between 400 and 600 linear feet, depending on which level of barrier wall you need, on the back of a tractor trailer. We can pull them off in 48-foot sections, all connected together, so 48 feet at a time with the same equipment or medium equipment that's sitting on that job site already. 48 feet at a pop, boom, boom, and it just follows it right down. We just did an installation in Louisiana. We did 2 miles of barrier wall. That's a lot of barrier wall to stick out, and I guarantee that most of the time I see concrete go on the ground, it's going pretty slow. It's not going fast. There are crews that can go fast. Most of the time it goes pretty slow. In addition to that, you have the equipment, the labor, and the labor costs for the installation, the relocation for your multiple phases, and your recovery. This is something 48-foot sections at a pop, boom, boom. And it's a smaller staging area. To stage an area for 2 miles of concrete barrier wall, we would have needed to purchase, I don't know how much. We did this in a small part in the back of a parking lot. It's, I say greener. When you put, 600 linear feet of steel barrier, 600 linear feet of water barrier, or 100 linear feet of concrete, it's a reduction of 6 times the amount of gasoline you need to consume to have those trucks bring it in, 6 times the amount of times you need skilled labor in order to move that stuff off the truck. And then functionality, I'm just referring back to those LCD slots. To be able to use this as barrier wall, and sometimes, I don't really need barrier wall. I saw an earlier presentation about guys bumping these around. An LCD can be filled or unfilled. So you can have a dozen of these sitting around on your job site. Use them, move them over by hand. They weigh 75 pounds. Slide them over by hand and block off an area. It makes it very clear for somebody when they should and should not be going in a certain section. So when do you want to choose? This is the punchline of all of it. When do you want to choose a water-filled barrier or barricade? I think it's urban installations, short-term projects, value engineered projects, when you're trying to reduce the total cost of ownership of the asset you're maintaining in your traffic control area, multiple phase projects, and quick setup. You know, in an urban installation, you need a smaller footprint. You don't have a 35-foot wide sidewalk there. You've got an 8-foot wide, you know, in areas like Philadelphia. They have old streets. You know, the streets are not 12-foot wide super highways like you get in Dallas. You know, when you're dealing with some of these older cities, you need something with a small footprint. I need an 8-foot construction fence and then a concrete jersey barrier. You're taking up nearly 3 feet of space, as opposed to having an 18-inch integrated temporary fence solution. Faster installation. These can be done by hand. They can be done with light equipment, 48-foot sections. On the back of a truck, for an LCD, you're going to get over 1,000 linear feet of longitudinal channelizing devices. Congestion reduction during the movement. You don't need to close off 2 lanes to have a crane come in and do this. You can do this off the back of a pickup truck, a small trailer, with just hand labor. User-friendly for emergency management. Again, dealing with some of the emergency managers, they say, we spec your product in, and the reason we do is when we have an emergency management situation and we need to adjust that job site after hours when the construction companies are gone, we can do it. We pull your drain plugs, we drain the water, and we move it out of the way. And LCDs is a replacement for other channelizers, just making that a little bit safer as just using a cone or a drum out there. Short-term projects, to be able to set it up fast, recover it fast, and lower your cost of the project. You know, a short-term project for, I would say, what I tell my customers is, if you have a project, it's 6 months long, it's not going to move, it's going to sit right there for 6 months, call the concrete guy. You're going to save money, that's the best solution to use. If you're going to set up for 2 weeks, 2 months, or even up to 4 or 5 months, this is the best, cheapest, fastest, easiest solution that provides you positive protection on your work site. Value engineered, increasing that versatility. Again, it's almost as a, it comes from just a long-term usage of using concrete. They write in concrete jersey barrier. They don't write in TL2, TL3. You value engineer that project, you look and say, we don't need positive protection there. No one's going to actually be standing in that part of the work zone. You can value engineer that down to using an LCD. Quicker alterations. Say I put that LCD in place and then someone says, well, actually we are going to work in there. Put on the steel rail, now you have positive protection. It's that versatile within the job site. Reducing your cost of ownership. Again, everybody, anyone that says they're not concerned with their costs right now, they're lying. You know, it replaces the majority of your equipment for concrete, drums, and cones. You can use it for all of those uses with one product. You reduce the need for additional equipment for maintenance. You reduce your consumption of that diesel and gas. You know, when it's spiked up to $4 a gallon, I own a rental company as well. When it spiked up to $4 a gallon, I parked our diesel truck. They said, drive the gas truck because it's only $3 a gallon. Reduce the need for additional skilled labor. You know, yeah, you can move that with a crane. How much are you paying that guy with the crane versus how much I'm paying my field labor down on the street? And then, you know, this can be repaired when it's broken. When concrete cracks, it's thrown away. It's put in the landfill. It's recycled. It's something. You know, like he was saying, when you drop that piece of steel, take it, flip it back up, bolt it back together. It's a great solution. Same with this. If someone does hit this and breaks it, you repair it just like you repair metal. Multiple phase projects. Just that video was great that you showed that with pulling the truck down the road with 100 some linear feet. What a great shot that is. Try to do that with concrete sometime. It's the same with this. When you drain all the water out, you know, these units without the steel rail, they only weigh 75 pounds. You can drive them by hand if you have to. Quicker recovery, to be able to load that up onto a truck quickly by hand, not with a crane. And flexibility for project change orders. to be able to put this out and to have some extra units sitting in your staging area. That, oh, we need to put another 100 linear feet out there. Okay, well, or we need 300 linear feet. Call 3 more 53-foot flatbeds to bring in 300 linear feet of concrete. As opposed to, okay, tell these 2 guys go over there and carry over another dozen units to stick out there. When you need a quick setup, you saw that picture that I had, 48-foot sections with light equipment, 6-foot sections by hand. That's fast. I appreciate your time. I'm not going to go on and on, but thank you very much, and I'll be around afterward if anyone has any questions. Or yes, sir. It depends on what you're using. If you're taking it from a lot of times you use it from a fire hydrant. If you're in an urban setting, if you're in a suburban setting, typically there's a canal. Like in Florida, we pull a lot of things from canals. Or you can use a water truck, or you can use a garden hose. I would say that, you know, when you do it from a fire hydrant, you're probably talking at less than 5 minutes to fill that thing full. With a garden hose, maybe it's 10 minutes. With a water truck, probably somewhere in between. Yes.
How does one repair plastic barrier once it's cracked and it's not holding water anymore?
For those of you that are familiar with when you weld a metal with a MIG welder or a TIG welder, it's sort of, imagine like a pistol with a spool of wire, a spool of string that goes through it. And you weld it just like you would weld metal, but you use it with low density or high density polyethylene plastic. And you just say, this is your unit, and you have a crack that goes like that. You hold that there, and it heats the area, and then it welds it, and it goes right down along the area. I can show you some pictures or provide you with more information, but it's literally you're just welding the crack with additional plastic the same way you can imagine a metal welder would weld a piece of metal in between cracked metal or 2 pieces of metal. I mean, I have units in our inventory, they've been cracked and broken a dozen times. You repair them and you stick them back out. It's not a disposable asset. This is part of your capital asset inventory. Yes.
Hey, Matt, has anyone talked to YODOC about any issues in demobilization when they have to actually when they actually have to let the water out of the barrier, especially with the environmental concerns? If they have an antifreeze admixture, they can't always discharge that on site. That there may have to be some mobilization elsewhere to do that. Has that come up? And if it has, what kind of advice do you give?
It's a great question. It comes up regarding adding water in there for areas where you're dealing with cold zones where you have freezing. I tell my customers, and I'm only speaking for YODOC here, there are different manufacturers with different warranties and how they do things. From YODOC perspective, when you're filling them with water to prevent it from freezing in cold areas up in Wisconsin, upstate New York, Vermont, you can add an antifreeze mixture to it. There's a standard calcium chloride salt solution that you can add to that, just like the rock salt you throw on the ground. That'll get you to about 0 or -10. There are some other solutions that are green, earth-friendly things. For example, in New Hampshire, Vermont. What state do you work in? Okay, in Maryland, it's not an issue. We've done some studies to basically show that the water doesn't absorb any of the chemicals from the plastic sitting in there. But in addition to that, there are some green-friendly. You just had 10 inches of snow a few weeks ago, and in Maryland, it's not an issue with discharging the water. Actually, there's a project starting on Route 95 in Maryland, just by Towson. There will be 900 linear feet of barrier wall installed. Excuse me? I-95. It's 900 linear feet of TL3 barrier wall. That project's going to kick off in about 3 weeks. As far as draining the water itself, functionality, not all water. The YODOC product has a drain plug on each end, or on each side of the unit. You can imagine you set up a TL3 zone, you don't want to be the guy that has to jump out of the wall to pop the plug on the traffic side. So it's designed with one on each end. Not all of them have that around the safety of draining the unit after for the recovery period.